Balotelli, Aguero!
Hello, welcome to MCFC 9320 Group TV. Hope everybody's well. As you know, I've been doing some interviews lately of people like Mark Halsey, you know, as a referee's perspective on things, Sam Matterface, a commentator, and I was absolutely delighted when I spoke to Henry Winter last night. You know, what an absolute gentleman he is. He absolutely oozes class, and some of the things he said about City, you know, behind the scenes, what it's like day to day, you know, as a journalist when you roll up at a football club and stuff like that. Just take a look at this interview. I'm sure you'll be very, very well impressed. Hello and welcome. And tonight I've got Henry Winter, the well-respected journalist. Hello, Henry. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Annie. Thanks for inviting me into your man cave. It's very impressive.
Yeah, it's not bad. A bit of work's gone in, as you can. I don't think there's any doubt in who I support.
It's nice to see it's the inside of a bar. I haven't seen one of those for a year as well.
Yeah, I don't think we're too far away now from visiting them.
Yeah, I'm counting down the time. I bumped into our landlady in the village. I live in the Midlands, and we've got a fantastic pub in the village, one of the attractions of the village, and she just walks around the village just giving a date and a time. So it's 4:30 on I think it's before the final weekend of the season, so I think I might be I hope to get to the last games in time.
Yeah. So what's it like to do a football match now under lockdown?
Match without fans. I mean, I've done them with England before, Croatia, Rijeka. Done a few of the games, but not for reasons like this. Not without the fans, the heart and soul of the game. Not without the noise. Not without the walk up to the ground. So take City. We would normally park over in the campus, and then you can either go walk across, have a chat with the guys selling the scarves on the corner by the traffic lights, or go over that sort of bridge, and then you get that fantastic view of the stadium. And you know, I'm not particularly high profile, but I occasionally bump into people, and they say, you know, what do you think of the match today? What do you think of City? And you know, just to have a chat and all that human contact. And very selfishly for me as well, it's about getting information. I'm talking to sort of City fans like you know 10 times as much about your club as I do. I may get a chance, obviously, to interview players and whatever, but you know who's playing well, you know who's coming through, you know who's kind of in form, whatever. So I sort of pick people's brains, but all that human contact is gone. And then you go into City. Look, the clubs and City were put in absolutely the best in terms of the way they've handled the medical protocol. So there are two elements to it. There is that slightly cold, everything's got to be right, following government guidelines, one-way system, medical protocols, temperature checks, filling in forms, and all that one-way system going into the ground, staying in the amber zone, not going into the red zone. And City do that absolutely brilliantly. It's ludicrously well organised. I mean, it's like NASA. But what there's also at City is it's very much the familiar stewards, the familiar media people. So there's that human side. There is that, you know, we are in this crazy situation, but we are doing our hardest and doing our best to keep things going, like the players, like Pep. The staff there have been absolutely brilliant. But I do really feel this with some of the stewards I've got to know at City, how much they miss the fans. Because City, I'm a journalist, I'm an outsider. When I go into a club like Manchester City and you talk to the stewards there and you get to know the people, you know, this when the fans turn up, the fans just aren't simply, you know, they're not like working in a shop and it's some customer coming in. It's like family. And you talk to the stewards are missing family. This is one of the great sort of, people haven't mentioned, people talk about the, you know, how it's been for the players, or even sort of on my little level, how it's been for journalists. But how it's been for stewards, you know, the stewards are really missing the fans. And when there was that short window just before Christmas, when some of the grounds were open, I went to one game, the stewards are outside in tears, just greeting fans back. So when that comes properly at the next season, when the grounds are full again, I mean, the emotional moment it's going to be for people like Stuart, seeing our friends, for the fans coming in there. I mean, I sit in the stadium surrounded by empty seats. Now at City, it's really good because I know we've got the sort of Tunnel Club to one side and whatever you think of the Tunnel Club, but there's some really good, hardcore, what I would call true City fans who've always been sort of close by, and you always sort of talk to them, and we've missed them. We've missed that. We've missed that absolutely hugely. I mean, I've done 135 games now behind closed doors, and it's the games. I'm lucky to go to games. I'm certainly not complaining, but just if anyone doubted the importance of supporters before this, if any broadcaster had taken for, they know how important the fans are, in the match going fans are for the broadcast experience. The clubs know that. The Premier League definitely knows that. And I hope that if there's one hope that can come out of this very dark period, one shaft of light, is that there can be a reset, that fans can be treated more properly. City, you go there, you're a season ticket holder, you know better than me. But City, I think they treat fans pretty well. Yeah. And I would say, and I hope that all fans do, particularly the away fans, get the ticket prices down, get the trains sorted out, get the kickoff times established far in advance so you can book your tickets, you can book your train, you can book your accommodation if you're going to make a night of it. So that's what I hope. So ultimately, I've been going to all these games. It's been a privilege to go there. And fair play to the players. I mean, people who said they were going to be just training exercises. I mean, I've seen some of City games. I saw, just finally on that, while it's fresh in my mind, I was at Stamford Bridge when you played there about a month or so ago. Yeah. And I was sitting where we sit, obviously all socially distanced. There are probably one or two journalists who are probably quite happy to be away from me, so they probably quite like it. But I was sort of sitting about sort of 3 or 4 rows from the front, and I noticed Fernandinho when he was warming up. And these are the type of things you don't normally see during a season, but during a pandemic, you've noticed it even more. Fernandinho's coaching. I mean, you'd know better than I would, but if he doesn't go on and be a manager or a really good coach, I would be surprised, because he was instructing, he was talking to Foden, he was talking to Raz to Sterling, giving them really good advice while he was warming up. So you're getting to see little things like that. And the other thing I really noticed, and I was really pleased, I've always been a long time admirer of his, seeing John Stones close up. First, how conditioned he is, how honed he is. And his touch under pressure, his first touch is just magnificent.
It's incredible. It's incredible the way he's turned that round. Now, is that, and the rumour has it, I think, in fact, it's not even a rumour, it came from John Stones in an interview I saw, that 2 pre-seasons, what have just passed, Pep's actually said to him, are you sure you don't want to move on? Now, is that, pardon the pun, a pep talk where, that's, the mind games for him, do you want to move on to make John Stones better? Is it coincidental that Diaz has come in and they've just formed an incredible partnership? But I agree, John Stones this season, his first touch, it's immaculate. And he's not even a defender these days. He seems to be scoring goals for fun. So, and we're just going on what you said about the fans and that, I totally agree with you. And I think that's evident and backed up with, I think, the best 5 leagues in Europe, there's never been so many, away victories. So it just shows the importance, of the fans, because in particular in the Premier League, anybody can beat anybody this season, and I've never known a season like it.
Yeah, I mean it's good that all clubs have missed their fans. But I was talking, I think before Christmas, to Jack Grealish about what it's like playing at Villa Park without the Holte End. And he was saying, and I spoke to Carl Walker about this, about how important the fans are, particularly if you play out wide like Carl does and Jack Grealish does, how much they interact, they get lifted by the fans. But it was interesting what Grealish was saying. So he was talking about how much he misses the Holte End, but also how much he misses the away fans, because they have a go at him, whether it's his socks rolled down, whether it's not staying on his feet, the normal stick that Grealish gets. And he says he thrives off that as well. So fair play to the players. You see someone like, Mahrez has been really good, probably one of your better players in the last sort of few weeks. And I saw you were not a fan of his, were you? But now he's settled in, and
I've really warming to him. So I hope we don't sell him now. I'm finally warming to him. it was more about his application, and But I must say about Mahrez, nobody in the Premier League has got a better first touch than Mahrez. It's incredible the way he just brings the ball down with ease. It's almost like in slow motion. So yeah, Mahrez,
He's been terrific. I mean, you've had guys. I mean, I think I was at the Everton game. Goodison, was it? Did he play well in that? Oh God, so many games. But I've seen so many of your teams perform, and defence. I mean, Zinchenko, Cancelo. I know he had a slightly different game, the game before last, but I just thought, in the Manchester United game, but I just thought that. I mean, he's been fantastic, stepping into midfield, can play either side. And I think when you've got a player like Cancelo who can play either side, it puts. I talked to Kyle Walker about it. I did an interview with him, a Zoom interview, when he was at homeschooling, and he was just talking about the pressure that someone like Cancelo puts on him to sort of deliver. And he was very honest about it. It's been quite interesting interviewing players during lockdown. I found a lot of them have really sort of opened up. I think because they want to get the message out about how much they miss sports, how much they love playing, but also I think they want to show that. I know Carl had one or two sort of issues during lockdown, but how much they appreciate what they do, and we often forget that with players. We often think, well, they live in their bubbles, they live in their ivory towers. It's all about.
I think the lockdown's actually brought. A lot of them care. I think it's brought them a little bit closer to the fans because. It's well documented that footballers, like you say, they're in their own bubble and stuff like that. But you are getting even the likes of Marcus Rashford and stuff like that. It's not just doing that. Even as a City fan, it's not just doing that for the plaudits and stuff like that. He's doing it because that's something he truly believes in. And if he's not happy with stuff what the government's doing, he's got the name as to do something about it. So I respect people totally like that, and I'm sure there's other people who are doing it. Without the publicity as well, but
I had a Zoom with one of your former players, Kieran Trippier, last week, and one of the things I said to him, I said, "Listen, we've really seen this during the pandemic. What you're saying, Andy, is about about players have shown their sort of compassionate side." And I said to him, I come from a fairly sort of nice, privileged family, and this is completely a world that I didn't even, to be honest, really understand or know existed. And I said to Kieran, I said, well, were you on free school meals? And he said, absolutely. And he explained it to me. So when you get an insight into that, that what these players have been through, what Marcus went through growing up, what Kieran Trippier, Calvin Phillips interviewed at Leeds, and he was saying it as well. I think you see, so it's actually no surprise that when they are seeing people around them in the community, who are struggling at times like this, for the most basic thing in life, i.e. being fed, kids going hungry, the indictment of this country and a wealthy country in the 21st century. I think it's fantastic that footballers have rallied, and I think they are reflecting the fact they've still got their roots, they've still got their connections, they remember what it was like, queuing up for the voucher to get a free school meal. So I think the players, if the two sets of people have come out of the pandemic best, and look, it's not a competition, but we've got to acknowledge there has been light and dark moments. The fans, clearly, I mean, things like the pay-per-view, rebelling against pay-per-view, I thought was absolutely brilliant. I thought it showed the Premier League and the clubs, enough is enough, stop with the greed. I think the response towards the furloughing at certain clubs, I think, the fans, fantastic how they rebelled on that, as they did at Liverpool and have done at other clubs. I think also the players, I mean, you mentioned, the City players, and I see you've got De Bruyne's shirts on the wall. De Bruyne, during the Players Together negotiations, I mean, I did a piece with Jordan Henderson, and he was talking about how important Kevin De Bruyne had been. And I said, well, the two of you are rivals. One player of the year, one footballer of the year. I voted for De Bruyne. I just thought he'd had a sensational season last year. Yeah. And he said, yeah, okay, so we're rivals on the pitch, but we have to work, we've got a common enemy at the moment in terms of the virus. De Bruyne's work, he's quite a low-key character. He wouldn't want his name in headlines, but the work that he did for the community, for the NHS, for the key workers, I don't think people will forget that when they know how much Kevin De Bruyne contributed, whether I'm sure he's donated financially because he's known as that sort of character, but just in terms of his leadership. Talk to Mark Noble at West Ham, he'll say Kevin De Bruyne, how brilliant he was during that Players Together. Jordan Henderson will say the same thing. So absolutely, I think the players have shown their heart during the pandemic.
And I do think when fans are allowed back in, I think the fan mentality as well will appreciate the players even more, regardless whether they're the players we support or the opposition players, because during the past year, that has been a light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people. Because I'm lucky, I've been working non-stop, I've been interacting with people, but it's people who've lost their jobs, they've isolated in the home, they've got nothing to do, but then football's there for them, so it's like the light at the end of the tunnel for them. And it is, I do think that the mindset of the fan will be more respectful to players as well.
I think for the sport, and I think in people's lives, it's going to be one of the most emotional moments when they walk back into a ground and they go through all the old rituals, the routines before games, get the scarves out. But remember, it's going to be tinged with sadness. There will be people who will be walking in to the Etihad, and there will be an empty seat next to them because someone has passed away because of the pandemic, because 120,000, 130,000, the figure is still rising, has passed away. And also they will look across and they will see, at the moment, there is a huge banner for Colin Bell. And football, difficult how to phrase this, but football is very good at cherishing the memory of beloved players. Football is very good at saying goodbye. And fans haven't been able to say goodbye to Colin Bell properly. The players did it brilliantly. Was it Phil Foden scored in a game and came off and talked? Was it Phil?
Yeah, and I thought it was just apt that Gundogan wearing the number.
Gundogan, sorry, Gundogan.
Yeah, Gundogan, wearing the number 8. It was some in the football gods, things like that are actually meant to be. Do you actually think?
And he spoke beautifully as well when he came? He's a very intelligent individual, but he came out afterwards and just spoke. He just pitched it right. And I just think it's important that these great names. So, like, I go to Ellen Road, and the great players there. 3 of their greatest ever players have passed away. Not all because of COVID, but of course, Jack Charlton, and it's football needs this moment also to celebrate being back, but also to cherish and remember the names of great names, and also fellow fans who are not here anymore. So when the first day of next season, first home game, it's just going to be so emotional.
This talk that the last home game of the season, like 10,000 fans will be allowed into the Etihad, so hopefully that'll be the crowning of the Premier League for us. But in all honesty, it's always fantastic to win the league, but it's low key for me this season. I don't know why. I've not enjoyed the football as much as I should. Mate, do you think there's too much football at the moment? Do you think it's diluted because players are virtually playing 3 times a week? It's okay for the likes of City because they've got a big squad, but I think that's, in my opinion, it's diluted the quality of the Premier League this season.
But I've seen some of the best football, that I've seen. I've seen some extraordinary games. I've seen a few stinkers, absolutely, but I've seen some fantastic football. like Spurs were poor the other day in the North London derby, and then you see a goal like Lamella's, the Rabona. I've seen when you had that fantastic winning run. I went to sort of most of those games, and the football that you played in that. Okay, there were some games that you had to grind out, but there were some fabulous performances in that, some fabulous individual performances. Was it the Liverpool game? Was it Anfield when Foden, I think he was in the second half, was coming in off the right? I thought he was. Remind me if I'm wrong. It tends to be a bit of a blur. I thought he was outstanding. Zinchenko doesn't get the praise that he deserves. I think
I absolutely agree with you.
He's centre halves, that Ederson, you talk about it's not been the greatest season, but I've probably seen the greatest assist from a goalkeeper ever with sort of Ederson's ball through. So I don't know, maybe it's because I'm sort of, over positive, but I can find a bit of beauty even in specks of dust. But they're, the football that City has played has just been absolutely intoxicating. And to see John Stones standing tall and stepping out like that, from an England perspective, because I cover England,
he's really enjoying his football.
Yeah, and I got to know his parents covering the under-21s, and they're just such the loveliest couple. And I bumped into them in the Red Square in the World Cup. I don't think Manchester City people should be allowed in Red Square in Moscow, but yeah, they're just such lovely, just really good people. So I can just imagine from a distance, their pride at seeing, John playing so well. I tell you one thing. I covered a game at Barnsley in the FA Cup in the third, fourth round, whatever it was, and at Barnsley, it's rather sort of sweet. They give you an individual corporate box, executive box to sit in rather than sitting outside. Very, very sort of sweet of them. So I was in this box at Barnsley. Chelsea were playing. And on the wall, there was a signed photograph of John Stones, and I think it had the sign. I mean, I can't remember who the corporate sponsor was. It was sort of, a local steel company or whatever. And it was, John Stones, sort of, local hero and all that. And I just, the journey that he has been on from there to Everton. And when he was at Everton, he obviously was playing well, but he was always winning their Community Player of the Year. This was always someone who always, because of his parents, because of himself.
His upbringing, you just know a player like that is grounded.
Yeah. No, he's good. So to see him amongst probably the top 5 centre halves in the world at the moment, I understand all the arguments with Diaz, but I think if you put Laporte with Stones, and the thing about Diaz is that he can play right or left, and I think you can see that balance, which is important because obviously Laporte prefers the left, but Diaz can play to the left of Stones if required. I think Diaz has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, he was just, obviously the Manchester United game perhaps wasn't his best, but I just think you look at him and he plays side on and he's almost sort of bouncing one way or the other just to make sure that he is always so alert. And what's been interesting in the games, I mean, having said that we want fans back, you can obviously hear a lot. And just hearing the communication in the City teams, hearing whether it's Ederson or whether it's Stones, I mean, you've got one or two sort of noisy players. One other thing you've got is this: Pep seems to have a member of staff who is just there just to talk to attacking players. I'm sure he's got some sort of important role, but throughout the whole, I mean, he sits about sort of 10, 15 yards away from my sit, and I almost need earplugs. Because he is like, come on, Raz, come on, Phil, to Foden, come on, Riyad. And he's just there to support them.
It's almost like a parent, on the sideline when they watching, the kids play, Sunday football. When I interviewed Sam Matterface, he actually said, Sam was sat in the stand, doing his commentary and stuff like that. And it was a penalty what United should have had. So Sam, doing his commentating, and he said later on when he was Ollie went up to him and went, "Thanks, I'm glad you thought it was a penalty as well." And Sam Matterface was like, and he realised, just commentating, the impact we know fans there. And it's like, wow, it's things like that. VAR, what's your stance on VAR?
Oh, I tell you what, it's been quite. I've watched a couple of championship games recently. It's just nice to enjoy and watch a game, knowing it wasn't going to be interrupted, knowing that a player could score and not have it taken away from him, knowing that that's what the game's about. It's about that moment of elation,
adrenaline,
goal, whether it's for the scorer, his teammates, or whether it's for the supporters or the coaches. And that moment, that nagging doubt that the goal might be ruled out, that there might be a delay, they celebrate, they have a quick look they look up now to the screens to see VAR check, whatever. I think it should be there. First, we live in an age of technology. I think it's ridiculous that I could go to the Etihad and I would have a screen there. I could also have the match streaming on my phone. I would have instant recourse to a replay and to know whether a decision was right or wrong. All the fans done it in the dugout. I've got it. Everyone in the stadium's got it, apart from the person making the decision, the referee. So I think in terms of technology, we should have it, but it's not necessarily VAR. It's how it's used. The World Cup in Russia, it was used intelligently. Better quality of referee. No English referees there, by the way.
It is in all other countries as well. When it first got brought in on, we played Spurs, and I don't know if you remember it. Gabriel Jesus scored, in the dying seconds, which we would have drew. So you, as a fan, you jump up the adrenaline and the euphoria and stuff like that, and it got ruled out. And I felt cheated. And for me, the first thing I think I tweeted, football is dead. And now we used to go to the pub and stuff like that, argue and discuss, oh, the referee got that wrong. But now we're not at the pubs and stuff like that now, but the principle's the same. We're actually discussing how VAR's got it wrong now, and that was like VAR should be like a get out of jail element, but it's not now. When referees are not even going up. I forget what game it was. It was the United Chelsea game. It was. What referee was it now? I forget who it was. He went up VAR, and he still made his own decision. It's almost like when a referee now goes to the screen, it's going to be overturned. So I'm not just saying fair play to the referee because it should have been a United penalty. It should have been a United penalty, but the referee stuck by his guns and he went, no penalty. Now, I think the fans would respect that more because that's more or less bordering back at how it should be. If because the referee did get it wrong, but he still stuck by his decision. Yeah,
well, I think they should be mic'd up. Well, they are mic'd up, but actually the mic should be flicked on for the players to hear, and also it would enhance the viewing experience. If you're at home, rather than twiddling your thumbs on the sofa, if you watch, I'm not a big cricket fan, but I watch the TMO and in rugby as well. And okay, those are sports that have natural breaks in them, but I just think that it would enhance, if you're going to have a pause, it would enhance it if you had some explanation and it would educate the game. But can you imagine 93-20 in the age of VAR?
Would we still be, would it have happened?
No, the goal would have stood. There wasn't a problem with the goal. I mean, it depends how far you want to take it back. But that emotion, Aguero just going off and celebrating like that. I can remember.
Then it gets taken away from you, and you're like, what?
What do you do? How does Aguero celebrate a moment like that when he's going around twirling his shirt and he's sort of keeping one eye on the screen just to see the VAR check? I just think it has to be used more judiciously. Look, it's here. For clear and obvious, maybe 2-3 occasions in a game for something that's really huge, then absolutely do it.
Yeah, it just for me, I'd just like it. And I think what annoys the fans as well. Yeah, it's not going away. It's evident it's not going away. But they're changing the rules during the course of the season as well. So people that have players would have scored goals early on in the season, but now they've changed the rules and it's not a goal now. So it's almost like they've been cheated of either a winning goal, an equalising goal, and stuff like that. And things like that don't sit right with me. I think it's got to be more. If any rule comes in, it should be right. We'll change it for the start of next season. But that's not the case. How can you see the Euros going?
Sadly, not full of fans. I think there'll be maybe a third in them, but having been brought up on and gone to England-Scotland games in Glasgow and in London, it's just the most mad, brilliant, colourful, intense occasion. Not always the best football, unless Gaza was good. I think England will be all right. I think I would like to see Southgate go to 4-3-3. I just think we've got the players there that suits them better. I think when you've got John Stones playing as he is with that pace, that mobility, that reading, I think you can trust your defence more. And I think if England had a back four of Trent Alexander-Arnold, Stones, Harry Maguire will always start because he is like a sort of leader type for Southgate. And then obviously you've got a debate at left back. Luke Shaw probably in form at the moment, or Chilwell. I'm just such a Foden fan. I say you've got to get him in somewhere. And I think 4-3-3 allows him to get into the system more. I'm sure Southgate will start with two defensive holders, probably Henderson and a Rice. But I would love to see a Foden in there. I'm a huge Sterling fan. I think you've got to have Sterling, Kane. I'm sure it will be Rashford as a front three. But absolutely Foden in that midfield three.
It just brings that in it. His best position for us, I think, is wide on the left. Although against Liverpool, he did have a decent game on the right. Where I think that's the only time he's played there. But on the left, I actually prefer him there than Sterling. I don't think Sterling is as effective from coming from the left. So yeah, it's a great shout. That it's. Do you think it should be played the Euros, or do you think the players should have a downtime and?
Oh, I mean, well, we might as well cancel all tournaments then. No, absolutely. You've got, at some point, the general point, we've got to get on with life. We've got to go. I mean, my kids are sort of booking out festivals for later in the year, and they sort of sorting out college and what they want to do. I'm sure you're the same. This is, and so, we cannot we have to mourn, the people, the 120, 130,000 people who have tragically passed away. We've got to salute the real heroes in society, the NHS, the key workers, and the people who discovered the vaccine. But then we've got to get back on with life. And, going back to work, getting fans back in grounds. I promise you, the grounds are ready. I've been into so many grounds. And so if I go for, without getting into graphic detail, if I go for a pee at Manchester City, there is a one way into the loo and another way marked out. There is parts, without getting too graphic, there parts of the urinal are not boarded off, but you can only pee in certain areas. It's honestly, they've left nothing, John. And it's
that'll make a refreshing change for when all the fans are in. Then if they adhere by that, I'm not a smoker myself, but I miss the fans having a crafty smoke in the toilet. So it's just little things like that, and like you say, just walk into the stadium and sitting next to the people who you sit next to every home game and stuff like that. Luckily
you're missing your family. They're your football family, aren't you? They're your second family. You're missing them.
I tell you what has been rewarding though. There's a guy who I know called Eddie Sparrow, and he I don't know if he runs like a city memorial page on Facebook. For all the fans and stuff like that whose family have passed away, not just through COVID, but he's been running it for a few years now. And probably the wrong word, the popularity, more and more traffic is going through him now, mourning the fans who have died and stuff like that. And he does a lot for charity. So things like that, I know he's suffered himself with, he won't mind me saying, with mental health and stuff like that. And he's found helping other people really comforting. So it's affected people in all different ways. But as you say, we're going back there and seeing everybody, it'd just be, I've got goosebumps just thinking about it now.
I think absolutely. But I think also when we come back to this sort of reset of football, we've also got to have a reset of society. And the work that Manchester City do in the community, the work that Manchester United do in the community, and the two clubs have been working together on so many things. The work that, I'm not from Manchester, I grew up in the middle of London, but the work that, say, someone like Andy Burnham, regardless of what your politics are, the things that he's done on the homeless, getting people off the streets during the pandemic, that, he announced on Monday with Mark Hughes was involved in it and Sir Alex Ferguson, because they wanted people from obviously Manchester City with Sparky's connection there, as well as United, just working with, trying to raise awareness of the heightened suicide levels amongst young men and women at this time. And it's crazy. I mean, there'll be things like domestic abuse will have spiked as well with people in lockdown. So when we come out of this period, for me, football has shown in this period that actually a lot of the best leaders in this country, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, some of the best leaders are actually coming out of the dressing room. Yeah. A lot of the best leaders, and I'll include Pep amongst this, are actually standing in the dugout. When I listen to Pep talking about getting on with life, but also showing respect. I mean, what Pep himself went through with his mother. Pep always talked so much sense. Little things he said about international travel and should players play and all that. Honestly, I hear more sense from managers and players, and certainly over the last 12 months than I've heard from
people running the country. And I don't know exactly. I always put analogies to every walk, even in work. I always use the analogy of football with leader. And funnily enough, you said leaders and stuff like that. It's there should be like Marcus Rashford, doing stuff like that, because the impact they have, one individual compared to, say, a leader of the country, it's a lot more. Let's say it's more. They have more impact than anybody else. So the more footballers who do get involved with stuff like that, the better, because people listen to football. I'm sure if something was if there was an interview on the TV about the news, say a well-respected player or manager, people would listen to that more rather than, say, a Boris or whatever leader. It'd sink in a little bit more, and maybe people would stay at home and stuff like that if it was coming from a respected leader of a football club.
Look at Raheem Sterling. What Raheem Sterling has experienced in life, the racism that he's experienced, the part of it from the media. I mean, we're certainly not blameless on that. And he called out the media with that Instagram message the day after the Chelsea game. I thought it was a very important moment, not just for football, but for the media, to make us look at ourselves more. But, just things that, that he went through on sort of homelessness. The fact that when he was training as a kid at QPR, he would have to wait until he got a text from his sister to tell them where the family would be sleeping that night, because they would be moved around council accommodation. So he has experienced things that, this is not an anti-Boris Johnson thing or Keir Starmer thing, but Raheem Sterling has experienced things that a lot of people in power just simply haven't. And I've always had this long conversation. We have to draw on the experience. I've talked to politicians. I've talked to Flipping Number 10 about, I spoke to them about, just don't even think of taking on Marcus Rashford, because he's got the social media. He can kill a fullback, let alone. But you know what? But this is something I can ask you. Do you think it's a Manchester thing? I mean, whenever I go to Manchester, it seems that this is a city that genuinely cares. Maybe it's the sort of the size of it. It's not a sprawling mass like London, but there does seem to be a culture there of, you do look after people.
We do. We look after our own, and the only way I can sum it up really is, City United, we hate each other, but we love each other, because the amount of United supporting mate, I can't say that I hate me mates and stuff like that, but it's just rivalry, that. But when you dig deep, we're up. We'll 100% be together and stuff like that. You only have to look at things like the Munich. What they have, where the red and blue stood together and stuff like that. And I think Liverpool's, symbolises that a little bit as well. It's just like, streetwise people who they've not got a penny to rub together and stuff like that. And that's why, if you hit the nail on the head with Marcus Rashford there, his name does keep coming up here, but and with good cause. If anybody challenged Marcus Rashford, it won't be just United fans challenging those who are challenged. The whole football community, the whole football family would be on Marcus Rashford's side. And I think that's where, like I touched on earlier, where the fans, are closer to the players now, regardless. Like people like you mentioned him earlier, Jack Grealish, some of the things what he's coming out with, and you just got to applaud, these players who, they come from working class backgrounds. So you do relate to them more.
So when Manchester United play at a packed Etihad next season, will Rashford get applauded onto the pitch?
He probably would,
Yeah, I'm not doubting it. I talked to Andy Robertson, and he said Marcus Rashford will be the first Manchester United player who gets a standing ovation from the Kop.
Well, he'll get a round of applause if he doesn't score when he's going on. maybe not when he's coming. Maybe not when he's coming on.
Tribalism rules.
It's got to be done on it. So, who did you support when you was a boy growing up?
Oh, yeah, I am so old. It was so long ago. I can't remember. I think if I'm covering a game, if I am, I'm very fortunate to go and cover games. I would say I'm probably England. If I'm covering a game, there's an element of heart as well as head. Yeah. Partly because, particularly with this generation of England players, that just you've been touching on them. They're a genuinely good bunch of people. They're dickheads in there, if I'm allowed to use that phrase,
Cool.
as you know, the whole New Zealand thing with the All Black culture, which Gareth Southgate's so keen on. So you know, I listen to what Raheem Sterling says. I listen to Fabian Delph. You know, when he was out at the World Cup, it was fantastic to sort of listen to him and you know his journey in life. And there's some great look, we give them stick at times. You know, I interviewed Carl Walker a month ago, and I gave him a lot of stick when he broke lockdown.
COVID rules, yeah.
You know, which was stupid, but there are a lot of good people in the in the dressing room. You know, and Carl Walker made mistakes, but you know, you listen to him, the background that he grew up in Sheffield, the abuse that his mother and father took. You know, and you look at how someone like him, who's not the most skillful player, but his heart, he's drive,
you can tell he's
fantastic
because he's been, you know, so low in the chain. They almost want it more rather than say a Messi growing up. You know, he's always going to be in the first team and stuff like that. Is a cert. But somebody like Kyle Walker, and even like the likes of Phil Foden, they've come from working class backgrounds like Raheem Sterling. You know, like say homeless and stuff like that. Their hunger will never go away, you know, for the game, because they know what it's like to be there, and they never want to go back to that. Who's your player of the season so far? You don't have to pick. You don't have to pick a City player, by the way, just because would you have Diaz?
No, I'm normally fairly neutral. I'd probably go Diaz.
He has
at
been
the moment, just in terms of impact. I mean, for me, it has to be a City player. I mean, I always think with these individual awards, and I vote on the Ballon d'Or. I mean, I do think the game is about silverware. You know, I couldn't understand it when Ferguson never forgave us when Ginola. We voted for Ginola as Footballer of the Year, and I think Manchester United had just done the treble.
Have you ever been banned by him from Old Trafford?
Have I been banned? No, I've had the hair dry.
Have you?
It's left in my hair. Yeah. Oh yeah, I've been. Who have I been banned by? I've been banned by Forest. I've been sued by a couple of people. But no, on the whole, I think if you're fairly balanced, I think people are, you know, all right. I don't get much stick on social media. You know, I'm just probably because I'm boring.
No, that's because you're a well-respected journalist. I've told you that earlier.
Yeah.
Sunday supplement. What's it like to be on there? I do watch it and I do giggle. Are them croissants real?
Yeah, no. The croissants became real because someone took a bite out of it, and first time on the show and realised it was plastic. It stopped. I mean, to be honest, I think it'll run its course. I think there's so many good programs. I mean, you know, like you do programs. There's so much good fan produced content now that having sort of 4 journalists sort of sitting in a studio cracking the same sort of jokes that we do in the press box. Yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was good fun. I mean, I've been on that program as it goes out live, where managers have rung in furious about what was being said. I.e., how did you know that? I mean, Kevin Keegan famously in '99 when he played Southgate in midfield against Germany. It was a good program, but I mean, like you say,
the fan content now, and that's why you know, even though I'm a big blue and stuff like, it's always interesting to get, you know, journalists on, you know, referees. You know, I've had Mark Halty and stuff like that, and you know, some of the things what Mark Halty was saying about the FA and you know the top brass at the referees. They don't want the likes of the Howard Webbs and the Mark Halseys and stuff like that, because they know, you know, they're outspoken. You know, because Mark Halsey, incredible some of the things he was saying, and he was absolutely spot on.
You know, one quick story about Mark Halsey before I go. He does amazing, obviously, with what he's been through, what his wife's, I think, sadly still going through, or certainly what she's been through. He does amazing work raising money for cancer awareness, and he hosted this event at Blackpool. And there were about 500 people in there, and they were all having a fantastic time. The last thing they wanted was for me to stand on stage and tell a couple of jokes. And I have to say, even I was booing myself off by the end. So whenever anyone mentions Mark Halsey's name, I think, good ref, good book. I enjoyed his book. Top bloke, one of life's fighters and most interesting characters.
Yeah.
But also I get a little bit nervous because I remember how I was almost run out of Blackpool for being one of the worst stand-ups there ever.
Is City fans' favourite referee of all time. Yeah, the Gillingham playoff final when he added those minutes on. He told a few stories. He didn't have to buy a drink in the Hilton. He said, afterwards he was staying in there with City fans. He said didn't have to buy a drink. But yeah,
good referee. Good. I mean, there were some good referees in that era.
Yeah.
Howard Webb in 2010 refereed the World Cup final and the Champions League final. You don't do that unless you're highly regarded. We've got no one fit to polish Howard Webb's.
He got a lot of stick, Howard Webb, particularly from City fans and stuff like that, because of it. It just seemed to favour United, but
sorry, every set of supporter thinks that.
To do. It's like now Anthony Taylor. He lives in Altrincham. All his family United fans, but for some reason Anthony Taylor's an Altrincham fan. So yeah. But yeah, we need to get experience, back there, especially if VAR is going to work how it should be. I think it's important to get them in. Henry, sorry, go on.
One final thing. First thing we've got to do is get referees at grassroots level protected properly. And if they are attacked and if they are verbally or physically abused, the people who do it get kicked out of the game and the club's punished or certainly brought to account. Because if we're getting 17-year-old referees at grassroots level being verbally and physically abused, why are they going to want to stay in the game? We need to increase the quality at the top, and that means protecting the talent pool at the bottom.
And also, social media, I think that needs to be governed, because going back to Mark Halsey, the treatment he got while he was going through cancer was absolutely despicable. So I think even like if you join in social network, for me, you should have to produce your full details, including passport number, proper identity, because at the moment, if you get banned, you just open it up with another email address. So I think everybody should be properly vetted. Henry, I know you're a busy man, and I know I only asked for 10 minutes of your time, but I could genuinely chat to you all night. Absolutely, some incredible content and stuff like that. Brilliant.
Really, really enjoyed talking to you, and I expected extra time. I expected 93-20.
Well, we'll end with an Aguero moment. Thanks for joining us, pal. Very much appreciated.
My pleasure. Stay safe, Andy.
Cheers.
So there you go, Henry Winter of The Times. I'm sure you'll agree that is an absolute fascinating interview. Great insight on a lot of the, behind the scenes stuff at City, things on the touchline, like he went on about Fernandinho, the way he coaches from the touchline. It's things that you don't really see as a fan, unless you're in that position. But as you can tell, Henry does seem to have a lot of affection and a lot of respect, not just for City, the way they treat journalists and the fans, but he seems to have a great affection for City fans as well. Let us know your thoughts on what you thought of it, because I will be bringing more stuff like that. It's not just all about ex-City players and stuff like that. It's great to get a perspective from all different professions. If you want to get involved in the show or anything like that, just what to do by now. Just give us a shout and I will get you on, if and when. Until next time, guys, stay safe.